Congress. Let's call on a gentleman who was in his second term 20 years ago when I was starting my first term. He is Pete Hoekstra, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and the gentleman from Michigan joins us from Newsmax, Washington. Pete, very quickly, what are you hearing about Speaker Boehner? Is he a lead pipe cinch this morning going into the vote?
I think he's a lead pipe cinch. The Louis Gohmert, Ted Yoho, I think they've got the finest of intentions, but they and Walter Jones, they're going to come up short today. Hopefully this doesn't set the tone for this session. Hopefully that they'll be able to mend these fences and come back together, this afternoon and, for the next 2 years and put forward a really conservative Republican agenda for the American people. Let's hope today doesn't taint the waters for the rest of the year.
Well, so much has to happen this year that it becomes, what you're saying is essentially this will be a first day curiosity, but then the challenge will be for Speaker Boehner and the leadership, if it remains intact, to move forward with an agenda. One way they do that with new committee chairs. And we don't mean to make this parochial, but Pete, you served as chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Your fellow Michigander, Mike Rogers, had that job. Now, Mike Rogers has left the Congress, and the Intelligence Committee will be in new hands. Same thing with the Ways and Means Committee, where Michigan's Dave Camp led that committee. The changes on those two committees, Intelligence and Ways and Means, fill us in on who is taking over those gavels and what that may mean in the 114th Congress.
Well, obviously, we're disappointed that Dave Camp and Mike Rogers are gone. They represented Michigan well. They did a great job in leading those committees. But you're going to have Devin Nunes, a new congressman from California, very well experienced. He is part of Speaker Boehner's inner circle. So, and he's very well prepared to do this job. On the Ways and Means side, you're going to have Paul Ryan coming in, who's going to be heading that committee. Obviously, a former candidate for the Vice President of the United States, former chairman of the Budget Committee. Paul is a budget wonk. He understands policy. If we're going to get tax reform, Paul Ryan is the person to do this with the Senate. He has a good relationship with Democrats. So I think all along the line, whether it's Ways and Means, whether it's the Budget Committee, whether it's Intel, Mac Thornberry is going to be the new leader on armed services. Again, someone who's put a lot of time in learning the ropes, both on intelligence and armed services. He's going to be a very capable leader. The committees, the changes in committees are going to give us a very good run of experienced congressmen who are prepared to lead.
Back to Paul Ryan for just a minute over there at Ways and Means. The observation in Washington is there are only two jobs worth having. One is to be president. The other is to be chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, because the Ways and Means Committee does control the tax code. Do you think now that Paul Ryan takes the gavel of Ways and Means, does that rule out any presidential ambitions for him in 2016?
Yeah, I think at least my understanding is that Paul is really going to focus on his job as Ways and Means. He's got this opportunity for 6 years. It is very much a unique opportunity. He believes that by changing the tax code, we can reinvigorate this economy. We can bring more equality to the American people by fixing the tax code. I think Paul's focused on that. They're also making a very significant change in the rules package that will help for tax reform, in that they're going to go to dynamic scoring. It's inside baseball, but it will allow the scoring of tax bills to recognize that when you change the tax code, you're actually going to see people's behavior change.
Yeah,
that will facilitate tax reform.
Yeah, the simplest way to talk about it, we called it reality-based scoring. We see what it means when you cut taxes to American families rather than what it will, quote, cost, unquote, the government. Before we go, one foreign policy note, Pete, in your role as former chairman of the Intelligence Committee, the president says we're out of Afghanistan, but the new Afghan president says we should re-examine our troop withdrawal. What do you think is going to happen there? A minute remains.
I think that the president has already agreed to keep more troops in Afghanistan than what he originally committed to. I think with this new leadership in Afghanistan, a closer relationship if the Afghan president asks for more troops to maintain stability and control in Afghanistan, I think this president and this Congress will give him those troops.
And so the bottom line is we may have more troops, but our president has sought to redefine it as troops, quote, not involved in combat, as he seeks to redefine those terms. Pete Hoekstra, as always, we appreciate your analysis and, of course, your wealth of experience there on Capitol Hill as the one-time chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Not only intelligence abroad, but intelligence under the dome, very important on this first day of a new Congress. Thank you so much for your time. When we come back, Congressman Ted Yoho to tell us why he's challenging John Boehner. Stay tuned.